Good morning, Marysville. So thank you for tuning into Charger Chat, the show that you're watching right now. Today, we have a very special guest. He is the freshman coach at MP, Mr. Ripley right here. So I would like to start off with what got you into basketball?
Well, I always played sports growing up, but my family moved to Texas for a year, and I was more of a baseball kid. And then in Texas, they have chiggers in the grass, which are basically like fleas. And so I couldn't play baseball because I didn't want to go in the grass and get bitten up all the time. So I really fell in love with basketball then, because all my free time, instead of playing baseball, I went and would just play basketball at the basketball hoop.
All right, so about what age was that when you started?
Oh, about second grade is when I really kind of fell in love with basketball as my main sport.
What was your favorite part about the sport? Because the transition between baseball and basketball is a lot different.
Yeah.
What would you say your favorite part is that you just stuck with?
One of my favorite things about it, the game is great. I love, I find it so relaxing to go out and just like shoot jump shots by myself. And that's one of the things that I think is an advantage over like baseball. Baseball you have to have someone to, I sound lonely, but I couldn't get my older brother to play catch with me all the time. And so I could go just shoot baskets by myself, work on my ball handling. So even though it's a really awesome team game, there's a lot of individual components that you can practice by yourself.
Did you find yourself practicing those a lot or to get to where you were, or did you mostly just stay and doing in-school practice?
Oh no, I worked all the time. I didn't have individual coaching or anything, but I would spend we have a sidewalk in our yard, and I would just dribble up and down, back and forth, working on my right hand, my left hand, different dribble moves. And then when I got older and could actually go down the street to the park by myself, I'd go down there and shoot, and I'd be down there 2-3 hours a day during the summer. And
so when you were in second grade, that's elementary school, did they have a school team or did you play with a rec team?
A rec team, just boys and girls club.
Oh, that's cool. Did you meet any really interesting people there that you went to your school at the time?
Actually, one of my best friends actually met so when we moved back from Texas, I think it was third grade, I met my best friend. We're still really good friends to this day, playing basketball. We were on the same team, and then we played all through our dad's coach together through Boys and Girls Club, and then we went to separate middle schools and high schools.
Oh, that's cool. When you moved back in third grade, was there any spark to try baseball again, or did you at that point?
I still played baseball, so it was just kind of replaced. Like baseball was my love before going to Texas. When I came back, basketball was my main sport. I still played baseball, played football, and I just like being active. But that's when basketball became my main love as far as sports goes.
And what school was that you started when you came back here? What was the school that you played for?
So I was still in elementary school because we were only in Texas for a year, but then I played at Explore Middle School. Okay. And then in high school I played at Snohomish County Christian.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What would you say of those teams was your favorite?
Probably my junior year in high school, we had our best team. And so we almost made it to state. We lost in the district championship game. It was really frustrating because we should have made it to state. Like a team that we dominated, that was in our league, finished 7th in state, and we had blown them out by double digits both times we played them. So we could have, I think we could have had an outside shot at winning state, maybe at least top 5 finish, and instead we didn't get to go. Although we were academic, so we did get to go for the trip. But
that's cool. What went into that team? Was it a lot of team building, or just each one of you did what you were saying you did when you were younger? You dribble a lot, you shoot a lot.
With that team, we had a lot of individual talent. We had a really good coach that kind of brought us together. But we had my school was a B school, so there weren't teams didn't have a lot of depth. So you'd usually have 2 or 3 good players, and then everyone else kind of just did their job. But we had 5 really good players, and so we were hard to stop because you'd have a different guy. Like we had every one of our starters at one game led the team in scoring, so we kind of took turns. We weren't easy to scout against.
Okay. So when they were scouting, what do you mean by that?
So like when you're coaching, you watch film of the other team, you look at statistics, and kind of, especially when it comes playoff time, you look at, okay, how do we stop this guy? Because this guy puts up 20 points a game. We're going to focus our energy and see, maybe we run a double team at him. or we look at offensive plays that they run and how we can best defend them, whether it's switching a screen or maybe you double team or hedge out of a screen to get the ball out of the playmaker's hands. So there's a lot of adjustments you can make.
Okay. What do you think, as a coach now, do you see yourself doing a lot of that as well, a lot of the play styles, things like that, viewing, or are you more just getting the players ready to go to the next level?
I mean, it's both. And like I said, usually it comes in more, especially league and playoff games, because really the first part of the season coaching is kind of getting to know your guys and their strengths and weaknesses. And then once you get into league, especially, we play the same teams. I've been at MP for about 5 years. So, there's a lot of same coaching staffs. Like, I mean, us and Getchell, we run some of the same plays. And so, you teach how to best defend it. And so a lot of scouting goes in, especially to those league games. And then playoff time is really fun because, only varsity's playing. And so the JV and the freshman coach and our assistants, we have more time to actually scout. So we'll sit down and watch footage and think of specific things to do to stop opponents and even look at their defense and what kind of plays will work and put stuff in. Okay.
So when you said earlier that you had a very good coach, is that what he did, or was there something else that made him just very impactful to your team?
He was really knowledgeable. He had played at a Division II college, so he was a really good basketball player. Really was strict and really held us to a high standard, which was good. I still remember so I played varsity as a sophomore. It was one of my first games on varsity, and he called the timeout just to chew me out. And he was like, "You're playing like a sophomore." And, I was like, well, I am a sophomore. And then I realized what he meant. It's like, you don't play like a sophomore on varsity. You got to step up your game. And it kind of woke me up a little bit to not just coast and be like, okay, I'm good, whatever. But to really kind of focus in a little bit more, because that's what you need at the varsity level.
Okay. Do you see a lot of your players going into it just coasting, or do you get them ready to go? Do you do the same thing, push and push to get them to go to that next level of varsity?
Mm-hmm. At the C level, I don't quite put. It depends on the player, because a lot of kids at the C level, I think, need kind of more confidence. They need to be built up and have trust in their own abilities, because I think that's really important. But then you do have, kind of sometimes the top players, you do have to hold to a little bit higher standard, because if you're a better player, you should be accomplishing more with your abilities than someone who's just not as skilled.
Okay. Do you see your players doing a lot of outside work as well? Maybe running around after school, doing extra things like that, extra jump shots, things like that?
Yes, a lot of them do. A lot of them hire personal trainers, specifically for basketball skills. And they do put in a lot of time, especially when you get at the varsity level. A lot of those kids have spent a lot of time outside of the practice and school getting better. I mean, our coach always says basketball is our head coach, Barry Gould, says it's a time on task game. The more time you spend on dribbling, you're going to be better. So you have really to get good, you have to get better in the off season, not in season.
So when you are running around, when you see the students running around, and they have the whole, any of them that have the ball is life thing, do you ever see them, wadding up balls, wadding up things, just randomly throwing things randomly throughout the day?
No, I haven't really noticed that. But I know, for myself, I still sometimes will pretend to dribble and, fake and just practice, go through the motions of a jump shot and stuff like that. So, I mean, I would imagine a lot of them do, even if I don't see it.
All right. Well, we actually have a lot more for you guys out in Marysville. But we're going to be going to a commercial break real quick, and when we come back, we're going to ask Mr. Ripley kind of about what it was like during high school season for him.
See this? This is what I'd look like if you guys would have won. But no, you guys lost. Your sweeping was off. Where were you when your partner needed you? I'm disappointed. Seth, those sweeping techniques. Have I not taught you anything? So stupid. And you, your pushing was off. That is so important and you just didn't do it right. Eric, good good job with those camera skills, though. At least he got good shots so I could see how bad all of you did. Thank you. Thank you. Guess we're just going to have a 3-hour practice because all of you suck. But you didn't suck as bad as Seth. 4 hours. 5 hours for you. You suck. Hear from you guys. What do you think went wrong? Anyone?
I say we had bad coaching.
Seth?
So what sport is this again that we're playing?
Oh my God, Dios mío, ¿por qué me pones este niño en mi camino?
Welcome back, Marysville. So today we have Mr. Ripley, if you are just tuning in now. He is the freshman coach over at MP. And we wanted to just talk about getting in. We've kind of done an overview. I want to know what basketball is like during high school, during high school year. What was it like for you starting out with the transition going from middle school to high school?
As a player?
Yeah, as a player. Yes.
As a player? Really, it's a time commitment. And similar as when coaching it's a time commitment. In middle school, season's 2 months. You play 10 games. And in high school, it goes from mid-November, hopefully, to March, because that means you're in the state tournament, which is a very long season over Christmas break. So, Christmas break is just, you don't go to school, but you're going to practice every day and stuff. So really the time commitment, and then even just the speed of the game goes up significantly.
Did you meet anybody back in middle school that kind of came into your high school with you, did the same thing?
No, because I went to Explore and then I went to a private school for high school, so I kind of left those guys behind.
What was that jump like? When you went there, were you playing with kids that were still your level, or were they a little above and you found you had to work for it? It sounds braggy, but I was like the best person in my class. But as far as catching up to, when you're a freshman, you're playing with seniors, as far as just their athleticism, their strength, that was a shock to get used to not being one of the better athletes and having to get by on skills rather than just being kind of quicker than the player. So as a freshman, you came in and you were playing varsity, I'm assuming?
No, I was one of the last cuts. Okay. So I was, they kind of were unsure, but they wanted me to play as opposed to being like a 12th guy on varsity. So. Yeah. So did you play a JV or C team? JV. I played JV my freshman year.
What was that like with the transition? Was it, you said that it was a faster paced game. When you were on JV, the whole time, did you look towards, next year I want to be varsity, or were you just happy with the guys you were around and the game? I was
really happy with where I was at because I was with all my friends on that time from the school. And, varsity was seniors and juniors who, as a freshman, I was intimidated by. And so I liked being on the JV team. We had a good team, and I got to be the best player, so I kind of got a little more leeway, which was a lot of fun. So like halfway through that year, actually, they kind of were thinking of bringing me up to varsity, and I kind of told them I didn't want to because I used my mom to do it because, as a scaredy cat, but because I wanted to play, and I really didn't want to go up because I was having such a great time on JV and go up and kind of swing varsity, which means I'd only play 2 quarters JV and then most likely wouldn't even get in the game. And so I really just wanted to play with my friends and enjoy that time, and I really did.
That's cool. And then, so when did you actually get up to the varsity level? Was that sophomore year?
Yeah, sophomore year.
What was that transition like going up? Were you ready for it, or were you still like, no, I want to hang out?
No, I was definitely ready, and I think that's probably why as a freshman I was more able to say, no, I want to play with my friends, as I knew I would get there. And basketball-wise, it was a bit of adjustment, and socially it was a little harder because I was the only one from my class. So I really played with people who they weren't my friends. They were they became my friends, but originally they weren't my friends. And but basketball-wise, speed of the game was quicker. Like I said, the coach had to chew in me a couple of times just to kind of step up my game, and it took a while to adjust. And then about halfway through the year, I moved into the starting lineup.
What position did you play in that starting lineup?
I was kind of point guard, shooting guard. Okay. We had another point guard, and so we kind of he mostly played point guard, but I would back up and also slide over where we'd switch off every once in a while. We shared duties.
So what are the duties that you do as a point guard and a shooting guard? What do you?
The main difference is point guard is responsible for handling pressure if you're dribbling up the ball, and and protecting the basketball, as well as getting the offense into the right place. So it depends on the coach whether the point guard sometimes calls plays. At other times they're looking to the coach for plays, and then also just really to be a leader out there.
Okay. When you moved up, did any of your friends come up with you as well? So you kind of already had that chemistry, so you could do it, or were you always looking to the coach, like, hey, these guys, what are we doing with them?
I mean, I knew the offense, so I was able to, like, I can be pretty shy off the court, but on the court I was always pretty confident and was comfortable being a leader. So it wasn't a huge adjustment for me, but it definitely took some time. I think that's why it took a while for me to really increase my playing time, because I had to get, it's difficult as a sophomore sometimes bossing a senior, telling them, hey, you're in the wrong spot. You need to get over to this wing and stuff like that.
Okay. Is it with, I know with football, they play a lot of plays, you have runs and things like that. Is that the same with basketball? Do you have, layups and then shooting plays, or is it just kind of a shoot and miss game?
It once again depends on the coach, but we usually have a few continuity offenses, meaning, you do the same thing over and over till you get a shot, and then you have some quick hitters where if you need a three-pointer, you're going to call a certain play that you run some screens and set up a shot for a three, or same for a post player, and it really depends on what personnel you have as well as what the coach wants to do.
Okay. When you were in sophomore year, you said your coach was chewing you out. What do you think that would have, if he hadn't done that, what do you think that would have looked like in your game? Do you think you would have progressed to the level you did, or do you think you would have stayed back kind of the way?
I think I would have gotten there. I think it just sped up the process a little bit, and he did a good job, because he wasn't a coach that yelled all the time. So like when he did, it meant a lot, that it was kind of like, oh, I am screwing up here. Where it wasn't a coach, some coaches I think yell all the time, where all of a sudden it's just white noise. And he wasn't one of those guys, so it really impacted me when all of a sudden it was like he called the timeout just to fix me, as opposed to taking me out of the game, and he really used it as a teachable moment.
So going from sophomore to junior year, was there any big difference that happened, or did you kind of just stay the same?
No, responsibilities went up. We were able to do some tournaments over that summer, so I felt way more comfortable with the guys, and then had friends on the team. As opposed to as a sophomore, I was playing with all upperclassmen. I looked at them more as my peers when I was a junior, and they were seniors. But even then, I didn't have any of my classmates on my team. I was playing with mostly seniors.
Okay. What do you think your defining moment, your big moment was with that?
As a high school player?
Yeah, through the whole high school career.
Really, my defining moment was as a freshman on JV. It was the first game of the season, and I had a pretty good first half. And it was near halftime, and I drove the lane. I took the worst shot you can imagine. I kind of like jumped in the air with my back to the basket, thinking I was Michael Jordan. Tried to shoot a fadeaway, and I missed it horribly off the backboard. And I was embarrassed that I took a bad shot, that I missed so horribly, and I was just really down on myself, because I hated the idea. I'd always grown up kind of being a point guard, and so I always wanted to get others involved, and I felt really bad for being selfish in that moment, because it was a bad shot. And coming out after halftime, the coach called me over and said, "Hey, Jeremiah, come here." And so I went over there, and instead I was like, "Oh, here we go. I already know I screwed up. I don't need to hear it again." And he told me, he goes, "You're the best player on this team, and you're going to take bad shots. Don't let that one bad shot stop you from being aggressive." And for me, that really kind of gave me confidence as far as being a player, that, okay, I'm going to make mistakes, and that's okay every once in a while. Obviously, if they come too consistent, it's a problem. But and then as a coach, it really has impacted me, because I want to do that to my players, and really kind of give them the confidence to make mistakes, and because you get better when you're pushing yourself, and so that's really like the long-term impact has been even in my coaching now.
So being the best, was there ever anybody who was second or like up there, and you guys would kind of compete for, throw it back at each other, like, no, I'm the best, so I can do this? And
we didn't really like trash talk.
Okay.
Like, because like I was a good scorer, and we had other guys on that team who rebounded and played great defense that were essential components of the team. It's just lots of times when you're the scorer, you get more recognition as being the best. But I mean, there were definitely on that team. His name was Nate, and I was a point guard, and he was a post, and he would get 10 to 15 rebounds a game, and play lockdown defense and stuff like that. And so, I mean, I was never being, we weren't like who's the best player on this team or anything like that. But you kind of get into your roles. My role was to score and lead on offense, and other guys' roles were to get rebounds and defense.
All right. Well, it is about that time again where we are going to have another commercial break. Coming back, we're going to talk more about what he was like in college and beyond, what coaching is like. And we actually, since he wasn't able to explain what it's like to be against someone who you think the best is, that's what the commercial is going to do for you.
You think that was cool? Watch this.
Oh yeah.
Well, watch this.
And welcome back to Marysville. So if you are just tuning in right now, we have Mr. Ripley right here. He is the C team or freshman coach at over in Marysville Pilchuck. So we've been talking a lot about your past, what you did in high school, what you did. We kind of did an overview, kind of what coaching is. But I want to know, what did you do after high school with it? Did you take it to college at all?
So after high school, I ended up at Everett Community College.
Okay.
And so played for 2 years there.
And then what was that like? Was that atmosphere very competitive compared to high school, or were you prepared for it?
Community college it's a weird place to play basketball because it's a lot of people come in for 1 year and they think they're going to be the best, and they you kind of have aspirations of like, oh, I'll play at community college and then maybe I'll go D1 or D2, and a lot of people, you get in there and you realize like, I was a big fish in a small pond. Now I'm in a bigger pond. I'm not so big anymore, and so. A lot of people, there's a lot of transitioning, and it's a weird team dynamic because a lot of kids sometimes they're there for themselves because they want to improve themselves. So it's not as close of a team as it is in high school. But I mean, I loved my experience there and playing there.
What was the coaching like there compared to being in high school?
Our coach's philosophy, he still coaches there, was very offensive oriented. So it was really fun. Practices were a blast. We shot a bunch of threes. We ran up and down. And philosophically, it was kind of like take as many shots as fast as you can, which was fun. And it's really where I turned into a good shooter. I was a horrible shooter before then, but I had so much time on task shooting at community college that I got a lot better.
So did you take any of the tools that you learned there, the shooting techniques and that, did you take that to your team in particular? Whether you'll do the same type of drills, activities, or did you take most of it, pull it out just from high school?
A lot of it comes from community college. And then even philosophically, I realized how much fun it is to play that aggressive offensive style, and that's really the style I prefer my teams play. It varies depending on personnel, but that's my preference.
So going from being a basketball player to being a teacher, when you made that transition, was it hard? Did you quit playing basketball at that time while you were working on your bachelor's degree, or were you still fully into it?
I was fully into it. Obviously not as much as, you're playing in community college, you practice every day. But I would always go at least a couple times to the gym. Up at Western, they have a really nice athletic facility. And so I'd go and just play in pickup games when I had time. And then I did intramurals, which were really fun. So I played as much as I could.
Were there any other people like that were pretty much just the same as you? They got on that team, but they were there for a different reason. So the pickup games, were they very competitive as well? You know, same level, or were you back to being the big fish?
It would really vary. You know, you go to a gym and you're just playing who's there, and sometimes there's really good and really good players. Sometimes there's not. And then also too, when you're playing, you know, pickup basketball, you end up lots of times. Sometimes you just don't get the ball. You know, because you're playing with 4 friends and they don't know you, so they don't pass you the ball, and so it all varies.
When you were going from teaching to becoming, you know, the coach over there, what was that like? How did you get that opportunity?
A lot of it actually went back to Everett. So I coached middle school the year before, and then Coach Gould at MP had his freshman coach was leaving. And he didn't know me, but I'd subbed a couple times for him and other teachers, and so he kind of was aware of me. He knew I played at Everett, and he played at Everett, and so I think he had like some trust as far as basketball knowledge and things like that. So I think that's why he was willing to extend me the opportunity to coach the C team.
What was first year over there like? Because you are a teacher at Getchell, but then you're coaching at MP. Was it a weird transition to have to get the kids, or the different kind of kids, or?
At that time, I was actually coaching at teaching at Pilchuck.
Okay.
So yeah, so it was it was a harder transition coming over here because I coached there a year and 2 years, I think, and then I was actually transferred over here.
When you are working with your kids a lot, do you find? I know that you didn't with yourself, you know, compare yourselves to at private school. At public school, is there a lot more of a competitive aspect against 2 individuals on a team fighting for maybe a spot on varsity or for the you know, the lead role?
It really depends on the player. There is usually some kids who you can kind of tell get jealous and things like that, and that's stuff you just have to sit down and talk to them and see how they're feeling and why they're feeling that way, and kind of help them through that. Whether, you know, you tell them, hey, you know, you need to get a little bit better, or sometimes maybe they're right. You know, sometimes you are favoring someone and you're like, oh, you are really good. You know, so it really comes down to conversation and talking with them.
When you're those conversations, do you pull kind of what your coach did to you, the very calm, like, yes, you are gonna make some bad shots. You may be very talented, but you're not playing at the level that I've seen you play. Do you ever have any issues like that, and then they kind of give back talk to you, or is it usually, you know, you sit down with them, you tell them this is what's going on, here's what I need you to do to fix it, and then they kind of step back and realize it?
I'd say like 95% of my conversations with players have always been really respectful, going both ways, where they don't give me a lot of back talk. But sometimes I think, like especially early on with C team, they don't have a lot of trust with coaches.
Yep.
And so you kind of got to prove it to them sometimes, I've noticed, where it's like I'll shoot around before practice and they'll see me make some shots and all of a sudden they're kind of like, oh, I can trust what he says, and things like that. But as far as disrespect from players, I haven't had to deal with that a ton.
All right. Well, we are going to take one more quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to get a couple final closing thoughts with this. We're going to talk about kind of where it's taken him now, and we'll be back after this.
I wonder what's a good caption. That was a good one.
Your picture was successfully uploaded.
Thanks, Twitter.
At Celine Ferreira, Seth Richards said, ugly.
What the heck? I'm so done with this.
Welcome back, Marysville. So we are here with Mr. Ripley. If you have just tuning in, he is the freshman coach over at MP. We've been talking about, we've gone through his whole basketball career kind of. I was just wondering, is there anybody you see yourself in that you've, seen come into the program as a freshman, progress very well going through, and then as a senior, you can see them going off? Is there anybody like that?
There was one player who I did really relate to, just his attitude, how he played, and he ended up not going any further playing basketball. But I loved coaching him, as far as just being uber competitive, and doing anything you could to get better and win. And there's been more than one, but there's been multiple, but one that I really did relate to.
Did you kind of coach him in a different way at all, or when you saw him sending up, did you try to still link up with him as he moved to JV and varsity?
Yes, I definitely did. He was sometimes not difficult to handle, but you just had to give him space, and I understood that because lots of times it's like I knew what I did wrong, and I was more mad than anyone else, and he was very similar in that way. So I was successful with him because I kind of, if he was pulled out and upset, I would just give him 30 seconds to calm down before talking with him, and and it was very effective. But it was easy for me because I viewed the game in the same way.
So you do have a lot of tips that you know of. So what would you say goes into being a very talented coach, very well-rounded?
It's a really tough question. I think the essence of it is really being true to yourself. Like, you can't be something you're not. If you're not a very stern disciplinarian, then if you come out and try to just yell at players and do that, then they're going to see right through you. And same thing if you try to be too nice and maybe you're not, you got to stay within who you are as a person to be successful as far as dealing with players. And then just kind of knowing the game. And I love watching college and NBA basketball just to see what kind of plays they're running and kind of keeping aware of what's the trends of the game as well.
Well, it is that time. We will be wrapping up really soon. I do have one final question. Is there any tips that you want to give to any maybe basketball students watching this, or any coaches looking for an advice on how to get their players more into the game?
I would say just make it fun. Sometimes I think with youth sports it gets so much on where am I going to get as far as going to college or getting wins, and really it has to be fun, because once you lose the joy of the game, what's the point of playing? It's still a game.
All right. Well, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Mr. Ripley, for coming out here on this interview. We will be tuning in another time. We will be looping this segment. So if you guys want to watch it again, just turn your TV on. Thank you.